Welcome back, everybody. I hope everybody enjoyed their coffee break today. We have another exciting program, and we want to kick off immediately with Monse Gardia. She is the president of the Quantum Blockchain Association, right? I got that right. And also the general manager of Alastria. She will talk to us about quantum, the transition from blockchain networks to quantum connectivity. Very welcome to the stage, Ms. Monse. Thank you.
Thank you very much, Pascal, and thank you all of you to be here in Malaga today. I'm going to keep the time as promised, but just take some minutes to just have a little bit of thinking on where we are today. We are here in Malaga. We are going to talk over 2 days about blockchain and what is going to happen in the next 10 years, so 2030. So what is going to happen in the world? What is going to happen with the digital world? And what is going to happen with the physical world? And that's right, we are flesh and blood, but we are also starting to have a digital identity. So why we are here these 2 days? I think it's to just have a clear understanding of what we want to happen, what we want to decide to live in, what type of world we want to decide to live. If we think about a little bit systemic, what I say is systemic thinking. No? Let's think about systems. It's not just systems of computing, it's not just architectural thinking, but it's a wild thinking of where we are today. What is our world today? No? We have been hearing Sarah Warren, who's saying different things that is happening around the world, and how we, in the world of the digital engineering, can go further and can help to have a more sustainable world, and how we can help to have less inequalities, and how we can be more inclusive. We have been hearing that this morning already, but the reality is that some of us, we are engineers. And we are engineers of information technology. And we are really, really challenged because there is so much to do yet, and we are only in the first step. So the first step to do something that is the technological disruption. We have been doing that, no? Over the last 10 years, we have been moving very, very fast. I'm going further. I'm going to 1995. Since that, we have been looking after all the different technologies, and we have been going very fast. We have been talking about internet, we have been talking about cloud, we have been talking about smart ecosystems, we talk about super society. And we design that. We do this design. And we look after being faster and faster, telecommunicating, sending data. What does means in the future information, and may means knowledge, and may means wisdom. So how we transform data in information? What we do is just give some context. You give context to the data, and that will be information. And how we can do knowledge? We do reference. We give context and then reference, and we have knowledge. And finally, we analyze this knowledge, and we get wisdom. Okay, if we do that mathematically, it's possible, we can start to do it, and can be possible. We can have, and that's a little bit what we have been talking about, artificial intelligence. We go further, no? We analyze this data, and we get, at the end, we could get wisdom. If we think about that, and we think about how fast that is moving in terms of engineering, we must not lose the idea that we live in a physical world, that we still have some trees, we have some wind, we have some air, we need to have some food, and we need to be living human beings. So how we can manage to still building this digital world in a physical world? Well, that's where it keeps interesting the quantum computing. That's the key idea around it. So right now we have physical computers that are well done, they are managing well the classical computing. And we are doing right now very, let's say,
Um, Christoph Stack is the director of the public policy at Telefonica, and he's also the vice president of Alastria. And the panel is called the Big Data, AI and Blockchain. Is it a match made in heaven? So Christoph, I invite you to take it from here.
Thanks very much, and good morning, everyone. We, I think, have a fascinating topic to discuss now in the next 30 minutes, which is about the convergence of some of the most important technologies we see currently happening, AI, blockchain, big data, each in itself a kind of huge issue and something we will discuss, I think, for much longer time. So I will try to go immediately to the great panel I have here to discuss these issues. I will introduce them while we go along, so I think that's the quickest way of doing that. But as I said, what we would like to cover is really to see what are opportunities of the convergence of these technologies, and also what are, of course, also challenges we see on the way, obstacles of the development, and we will cover that, hopefully, in the time we have. So we'll start with David Schreier, who's right next to me. I think he needs no big introduction. Afterwards, during lunchtime, you can have a book of him. He's going to sign a book on trusted data. He just has published this week, I think. Is that right? Yeah. So a brand new book. Here it is. Here it is. So that's the little kind of marketing part. He is a fellow of University of Oxford, of MIT. He runs an online master in Oxford regarding blockchain technologies. And I really wanted to ask you, David, when you see this big picture I just tried to describe about technologies, the convergence of it, and so on, what is really, I mean, how do you think that would really shape the data economy going forward? And what's specifically the role of blockchain? I mean, we're here in the Blockchain Congress. So how do you see blockchain in this kind of ecosystem of various technologies kind of converging?
Yeah, thank you, and thank you all for coming to our panel this morning. So to understand where we're going, it's important to know where we're coming from and exactly how much data there is now being generated in the world, and then what we're doing with it. So we are right now heading towards having more than 44 zettabytes of data generated from IoT and computer systems. So one zettabyte of data is equal to 250 billion DVDs. If we took all of this data that were generated and we printed it out on books like this and we stacked them up on top of each other, we could make several round trips between the Earth and the Sun, walking on that path of zettabytes of data. So we're generating more and more and more data, and it's living in these giant data lakes, and we're kind of drowning in them. We don't really understand them. And then we had the brilliant idea of, I know, let's take all this data and let's put it in a special database that can't be erased, called a blockchain. So we haven't looked very well to date at the quality of that data that we're putting into these blockchains. So in the words of the former head of innovation for a major bank in the UK, we are now going to have immutable crap. So that gets us to where we can go, where the convergence of new technologies can help us avoid drowning in this glut of data. So with AI and big data analytics, we now have an opportunity to filter and improve the quality of the data that is going into our blockchains. And then in addition, we have the opportunity to do interesting things with that data that we didn't used to be able to do. So one of the things we talk about in the book, Trusted Data, is how we could make a better digital identity that could live on a blockchain. So that's just one use case, but it's an example of where you have blockchain that enables the sharing and securing of that personal data, and you have AI that's generating that data, and you have big data analytics that's letting us sort of examine interesting things about that data in new ways. So we see some tremendously exciting opportunity as we start to converge these different technologies. And the way I like to think about it is, blockchain is kind of this substrate layer. So on the one hand, it's the storage mechanism, but on the other hand, it's an empowerment mechanism. It's a new way of getting access to that data and even organizing human systems in different ways. And then AI and data analytics can be applications that run on that substrate and make that data more useful.
Okay, great. I mean, so blockchain as the enabler, a technology which can kind of really empower other technologies to work better. Martin Fleck, who is the next, is the head of EMEA Market Development at Oracle. So basically he has a long experience in technology, is running a team which is working actually on trying to find, you know, these new kind of next wave of innovation, next wave of technology. So he is kind of every day kind of involved with his kind of partners and customers on working on that. So what I would like to ask you, Martin, is, I mean, really from a perspective of your customers, I mean, what's the demand? I mean, we have heard, you know, the if I might say so, the theoretical part, you know, which sounds great, but is there really demand in the market for that? What do you see from an Oracle perspective, you know, what are people demanding from you regarding these technologies?
So it's a very interesting time that we currently live in, and if I look back to, say, 2 years ago, and we do a lot of business with enterprises, with governments. If you would raise your hand and said, I want to do a blockchain project, money would just be thrown at you. In a way that's really good, of course, because a lot of learning was taking place. From our perspective, it meant a lot of work and not so much revenue. So what I see now is these proof of concepts, they still happen, but with a clear intent to go live. And the great thing about blockchain projects is that you can do them actually quite fast. So we have examples, for example, in Decathlon, large sports retailer, they wanted to build a loyalty system, but not just between them and their customers. They wanted to include sports event organizers, sports clubs, so you have the constant visibility of your loyalty points. From the first conversation to live in 3 months. Another great example we just went live with is Volvo. If you buy a Volvo, you wanna have a car that drives your children safely to school. And Volvo released an electric vehicle, and an important source of the batteries is actually cobalt, which is mined in Africa, and not always in the best conditions, and sometimes even mined by children. So they wanted to have the guarantee for their customers that the cobalt that was sourced for the lithium-ion batteries was sourced in a proper way. So they put that whole supply chain in a blockchain. Great example, I think, also how the technology can make the world a little bit better.
And why did they use blockchain in that specific example? I mean, is that just an internal use case for Volvo, or is that something where they connect with other parts? I mean, what is really, why did they use blockchain and other technologies?
So currently, it's only Volvo. So they have all all the stakeholders in the supply chain. And now the great thing in Oracle is that we have, of course, lots of customers, and we actually introduced Volvo to Daimler, to Volkswagen, who are also interesting, because that system will become much more powerful, of course, if it is adopted by multiple car manufacturers. Yeah.
And do you also see that there is something happening like using various of these technologies together? I mean, not just blockchain, but also adding in, you know, in the way basically David described it, you know, like blockchain as a lower level and then something happening on top?
So you're referring to AI, right? So for AI machine learning, you need a lot of data, a lot of data to train the models. We do have one customer we're working with, CargoSmart. CargoSmart is a consortium of 9 ocean shipping carriers and ports like DP World, Hutchison, Costco. They created a blockchain to store all the shipping documentation, and they achieved like 65% improvement of getting all the shipping documents confirmed, validated, checked across all of the stakeholders. That system is now live for more than a year, and we're starting to see sufficient data in that system. And one of the things that they're considering, so that they're not doing it, so let me be honest here, is to see if they can, for example, use all that data to get predictions or estimates on the insurance cost, for example, for shipping dangerous goods. And again, it's much more what we see not in revolutionary new business models, it's much more in optimizing existing business models and in saving time and becoming more efficient in doing that. So from our perspective, the combination blockchain AI is in the early days. Yeah.
Okay, great. I will switch to Christina Randa. She is a business developer heads the business development in Europe of Tiger, a company based in Singapore. She's very known in Spain as a co-founder of Mujeres Tech, which kind of cares about more diversity in the technology sector. And she has a PhD, which I found fascinating, in theoretical and applied linguistics, which is, of course, fine. I mean, not only theory, also the application to the real world. This is always very useful for us. So I wanted to ask you, Christina, and that's maybe when we switch to more the part of challenges we see currently regarding these technologies. There's a lot of debate on usage of AI, regarding biases, regarding discrimination. And so how do you see that? Do you think these are real kind of dangers, and also what could be kind of solutions for them?
Thank you for having me, and thank you, Alastria, for the organization, for the amazing event. So for me, we are living in a challenging time. This is the first time in the humanity that we are producing a lot of data, as David said. And all this amount of data, we brought in this data our perspective, our prejudice, our point of views. And this is the challenging is all these people, and Monse told us in the keynote before, that the challenging is the people who works with data has to know perfectly or what is the kind of this data. There is a lot of bias in there. In fact, yesterday, the news of the Apple that give credits more to the man than the woman. So there is a lot of data, or a lot of another case of artificial intelligence solution with Amazon, who use a platform to make the preselections of the IT people, and there is the women are discarded because men in the historical is the first point, no, to decision. So this is bias in the data, and this is bias also in the algorithms that we use. So it's very important to let know the people, all the people that we work with data, all the people that we work with artificial intelligence, and also politicians and social agents. That's very key, because they are going to give me a credit, they're going to give me any solutions through this data. So we have to know where does the data come from, what is the nature of this data, and we have to work to anomalize this data as a blockchain lays. I can neutralize the data of the identity, as for example, gender, age, racial, whatever item, whatever parameter, I can neutralize with blockchains, and also tools as, for example, IVM. This is an open source tool that you upload the data, and you can see the bias inside this data. So, but the first thing is people, human. You have to focus that what's happening with the data, and people who work with this data has to, because the algorithms doesn't have ethics. People have ethics. So this is very, very challenging for me. And now this is and it's challenging too, because now the humanities people who are studying humanities, we are so valuable. We give value to the IT teams, and we work together. So now this is not the soft skills issues time. This is the power skills time. So now the people has to understand ethics, has to have the social impact of our digital solutions, and all these things that start from to see what the matter, the nature that of this data.
So, if I understand correctly, I think that's an important point. What you're saying is that in the end, the bias and the discrimination in the end stems from ourselves. I mean, from the human beings. So we have to train basically people developing the algorithms, developing the systems, and so on. They have to be kind of sensibilized and aware of that.
Yes, of course, because in IT groups, the IT teams, there's 80% of white men, straight, Judeo Christians, and without any disabilities. So I give you a lot of examples about solutions that don't think about diversity and inclusion. So there is very important that the people start to see that what you are going to do is going to have a social impact. For example, yesterday, the credit. I am a woman. Apple does not give me a credit. Why? I'm very rich now. No, but or for example, there is another case that for soup, if you are black, they don't give you a soup. This is a machine, Internet of Things machine, and I can give you a lot of examples about diversity and inclusions. So, and now this is the challenge, because the people who work with the data, they have to think about, oh, this is the data, where it come from, and how can do better, keep the balance of this data. So, but this is start to focus to think see the things out of the box and be open, you know.
Very interesting. In my company, Telefonica, we call it ethics by design. It needs to be ethical by design. I mean, and so I think that's actually the way forward. You know, that you need through the development process, you need to have clearly defined checkpoints where you see if you're following the guidelines you have given yourself. Okay.
Users are human, are people.
That's true. We still. Okay. I would switch then to Erika Andrade, and I will switch to Spanish now. You will see translations happening on the screen, hopefully. Erika, acabamos de hablar muchísimo de las posibilidades y también de los primeros como retos que vemos en el uso de inteligencia artificial, blockchain y esas tecnologías, el uso de datos en el fondo. Tú trabajas en una compañía que se llama Nocia Academia, que trabaja en la educación y en mejorar las capacidades, especialmente de gente joven, para usar esas tecnologías. Entonces, de tu punto de vista, ¿cómo ves la día de hoy? ¿Estamos preparados en las sociedades para usar esas tecnologías? ¿La gente joven ya están despiertos y saben usarlos? ¿O cómo ves tú el escenario de la educación y de las capacidades de la gente, especialmente de la gente joven?
Hola, primeramente me gustaría de agradecer por la invitación de estar hoy. Respondiendo su pregunta, Christoph, trabajo en una compañía que se llama Noce, que está en Cabo Verde, y nosotros creamos un programa que trabaja directamente con los jóvenes que salen de la universidad y que hacen su formación en la área tecnológica. Solamente para tener una idea, los jóvenes cuando entran para el programa, para la compañía, ya tienen muchos desafíos a nivel de tecnológica. Nosotros creamos una plataforma de criptomoneda que llamamos de Nocicoin, que fue creado, desarrollado y implementado por los jóvenes. Ellos tienen constantemente desafíos a nivel de tecnológica y están acompañando el mercado internacional. Sabemos que esas tecnologías son tecnologías del futuro y por ser tecnologías nuevas para nosotros, contamos con experiencia de países como Estonia. Por ejemplo, esa plataforma que fue creada tuvo apoyo técnico de Estonia. Pero nosotros también tenemos muchos desafíos. Tenemos desafíos al nivel de la firma electrónica. Todos los stakeholders, los intervinientes, tienen que estar alineados desde el sector privado, desde el gobierno, de los bancos, para que los procesos se puedan acelerar. Tenemos también el desafío de la digitalización, pero en esta materia es más fácil para nosotros porque ya contamos con la experiencia de NOSI, que es responsable por toda la gobernación electrónica del país, que ya tiene una larga experiencia de cerca de 20 años. Por eso toda la gobernación electrónica, toda la administración pública de Cabo Verde ya ha informatizado, pero que es más fácil para nosotros. Por último, también tenemos el desafío de la regulación, de las cuestiones legales. Pero nuestro Banco Central ha creado un equipo que va a trabajar exactamente en esta materia, pero que en breve creemos tener muchos avances y bastantes resultados, pero que sí, nuestros jóvenes están más de que preparados, están acompañando todo este proceso tecnológico.
Okay, thank you. And very interesting. I was not aware that there is cooperation between
Muchas
Estonia and
gracias.
Cabo Verde.
Cooperación entre Estonia y Cabo Verde, que es fascinante como esta cooperación ya está a nivel global. Y es una secuela muy interesante sobre lo que queremos hablar ahora, que son los desafíos legales y regulatorios. Nos ha dicho que son innovadores, abriendo las posibilidades para las criptocorrencias. Y eso es un buen ejemplo de los reguladores que están abiertos de mente para implementar la política. Bueno, hoy en día vemos, eso es algo que es muy importante para mí, que siempre estamos hablando de la modernización de la regulación y eso es un buen ejemplo que está viendo lo que está ocurriendo.
One place where we're translating theory into practice is in the area of regulatory toolkits. So increasingly we're seeing central bankers and government officials looking to build greater capacity around understanding disruptive technologies like blockchain, like AI, and then what are best practices of enabling environments for innovation. So how can countries create more innovation, new companies, new technologies being adopted, while providing for consumer protection, managing the stability of their financial systems and managing risk. And so that's where these policy toolkits come in place. So we've begun developing an array of, on the one hand, educational materials for central bankers where in very simple, non-technical language they can understand what is blockchain, what is AI, what are algorithmic decision-making systems, and what are their impacts on society. And on the other hand, what are regulatory frameworks that can be put in place? What are best practices that, for example, avoid unintended consequences? So there have been a couple of instances where regulators have leapt into action to try and protect consumers and ended up destroying the very innovation that they were trying to foster. So in one country, for example, they had enabled non-bank financial companies to provide alternative loans using algorithmic decision-making. Then the interest rates got too high, so the parliament passed a law capping interest rates, and all of the lenders left the country because they no longer could afford to make loans in the country. So we want to avoid that happening. At the same time, we need to protect consumers. And so that's where this aggregation of best practices is starting to gain momentum. And I should mention the EU has been very much at the leading edge of progressive regulation that both protects consumers and also provides for innovation. And so in AI, for example, 3 different groups looking at how do we manage these algorithmic decision-making systems that avoid having people who receive loans only being, as one colleague called it, male, pale, and stale. So how can we have a more equitable environment? And that's I think, a tremendous opportunity, because government is one way that we can achieve change at scale.
Great. And Martin, I mean, looking from a business perspective again, I mean, when you develop projects using blockchain, what are the key hurdles you see? I mean, do you see, in the development of these projects that there are challenges regarding legal or regulatory aspects? I mean, what is really, or does it really not happen in reality? Is it just something, some regulators care about, or people like myself?
Yeah, there are challenges. But it's not so much about blockchain itself, I think. There are challenges implementing a database as well, right? Particularly because nowadays most organizations want to consume these services from the cloud. So I see much more conversation about just that, cloud versus on-premise. And as a result, actually, we originally launched our blockchain cloud service, well, as a cloud service. It's, by the way, based on Hyperledger, and we're actively contributing to the Hyperledger consortium. But now, because of some challenges with some customers, we actually now have delivered this product as an on-premise product as well, to overcome some of those challenges, particularly for public sector projects where you want to have full ownership of the blockchain and not being dependent on any data center that is not managed by yourself.
Okay, great.
So, Christoph, if I may ask, we also would like to get some customer, some people. We have a question up there from the audience, and maybe you can direct that to the person who you think is most suited to answer this question. This is the question that's come from you as an audience. So I want to encourage you all as well to ask more questions and vote for these questions as well, because this is really about convergence, about learning things together. So Christoph.
Okay, great. So I think the question was, if I remember correctly, what type of data should be on blockchain and what type of data shouldn't be on blockchain? Is that...
Thank you. Well, Oracle, of course, is well known being a database company. So you shouldn't start by thinking, well, it should be in blockchain, and only if you don't see these conditions, you should do something else. I think you should look at it. What is the need? What are the business drivers? Is trust necessary? Is immutability necessary? Are you working in a supply chain where there isn't any trust between parties? Do you want like a distributed technology rather than a single database? But a blockchain project is typically more expensive because you need skills that are rare. It is less energy efficient, let's be honest about that. And there are other technologies that are much more efficient, like a database or like simple integration technology. So that would be my answer to that question.
Okay, great. We're at the end of time, but I mean, just a final round of comments from you, and really please keep it to a tweet, really, of a very short comment. If you take your crystal ball looking forward, 7, 8, 10 years, whatever, I mean, what will be the great benefit blockchain has brought to us, or the convergence of these technologies has brought to us? I mean, any idea of, what would be your tweet, or whatever you might use in 10 years' time?
If you want to hear my vision of the future of blockchain, come see me in the exhibition hall at 1 o'clock, where we'll be talking about it further.
Okay, great tweet.
I think in the future it will be completely demystified, and it will be just seen as a technology that you can choose.
Sí, adelante.
Sí, yo pienso que esas tecnologías son el futuro, pero que nosotros tenemos que siempre estar acompañando a esas tecnologías para el desarrollo de nuestro país y de los jóvenes también.
Gracias.
The future is working now. The technologies, blockchain, artificial intelligence, are a channel to get amazing things. But we need to develop in our teams power skills, human skills, and also equal skills to get amazing things and to make this world better.
Well, I think that's a great finishing line. Thank you very much to the panel. Thank you much to the audience for questions and your time. And well, looking forward to more debates the next 2 days. Thanks.
Christoph and panelists, thank you very much for this very enlightening panel. I look forward swimming in the data lake at 1 o'clock with Mr. David and talk about his book. And I think, again, very important as we move forward to think about diversity and inclusion. And what I really like is the idea, and something that might spark some conversations amongst each other, is what does ethics by design look like? So now up to my next panel that will be introduced by Mr. Ignacio Almilio. He will talk about tech convergence and how vital it is for a strong cyber security. Ignacio, can I invite you to the podium? Sir? See you. You will introduce and put on the question. Okay? Yeah, okay, great. Thank you. Welcome. Welcome so much. Welcome. Welcome, sir. Welcome.
So good morning, everyone. So my name is Ignacio Lamillo. I'm going to be your moderator today. So we have an excellent panel for this morning, talking about cybersecurity. I won't be introducing extensively the panelists because you have their bios available. So we have Luis Pastor from Grant Thornton. We have Masanori Kusunoki. I think, sorry if I misspelled your name. From Japan Digital Design, the Executive Advisor to the Government of Japan. We have Jacqueline O'Hale from Room 333. And we have Concepción Cordón from the Empresa Municipal Aguas de Málaga. We're mainly doing the roundtable in English, but Concepción probably will speak in Spanish also. So you have a learning experience on our beautiful language. So, well, we've decided to do this in several questions. So I asked my panelists to propose me several questions. I've combined them in several ways. So probably we'll have a fruitful discussion about cybersecurity, which is one of the most important challenges we're facing when it comes to the blockchain. In fact, I am a member of, just as Masanori, of the ISO TC 307. We're discussing very tough topics on cybersecurity, such as smart contract security, which are not really trivial. And these are topics that if we do not get an answer, really good answer from the regulatory space and from the cybersecurity space, including certification of software, probably we're not being able to deploy anything that works. So my first question is for Masanori and Concepción. So you know that one of the important topics in cybersecurity when it comes to blockchain is crypto assets. So these crypto assets allow attackers to collaborate globally, but defenders and law enforcement authorities are still vertically divided. So the question is, how should we collaborate internationally when the crooks are there stealing assets using the blockchain? How do we organize ourselves? And for Concepción, I'm interested in the role of the international cyber exercise practices we tend to do in classical spaces. So it's up to you. You have the floor.
It's very difficult. Currently, we don't have enough experience to how to resolve incident of crypto asset related. In Japan, many crypto assets exchanges attacked and still under investigation. CoinCheck and Gaif and on this year, Bitpoint Japan. We cannot share enough information because of it's still under investigation. But we can describe some practice how to minimize leakage of crypto assets. For example, segregate hot wallet and cold wallet, and very few crypto assets on hot wallet, and make a reserve to pay back on if leakage. It is already regulated in Japan. And TC307 now making a technical report that security management of crypto asset custodians. It tries that currently blockchain technologies are open, but custodian structure is not open, and they have different language and different architecture. But we try to describe reference architecture and how to protect that. We have to build a common language to protect and make sharing best practice between cross organization and the countries, utilize a standardization process and international dialogue on, for example, this event also. I think it is very important. Thank you.
Creo que los ciberejercicios son importantísimos para conseguir sobre todo lo más importante ante un ciberincidente, que es el tiempo de respuesta. Pienso que es difícil, antes lo comentábamos ahí con Manasoni, que es muy difícil conseguir esta integración entre países, pero es necesaria y es la única manera de reducir el tiempo de respuesta, que en definitiva es lo que nos va a dar el éxito o conseguir atajar el ciberincidente, sobre todo cuando es a nivel global. Aquí en España llegamos a tener hasta una embajadora de la ciberseguridad para precisamente cuando se va a cualquier encuentro internacional podamos hablar un único lenguaje común y poder entendernos entre la globalización de países y sobre todo la globalización de los incidentes a los que hemos llegado. Y es fundamental, es difícil, antes con Manasoni decía que tenemos que intercambiar toda la investigación, es crucial, pero esa investigación sin una puesta en común de un momento de crisis, porque básicamente es una gestión de crisis, y para saber gestionar una crisis, desde mi punto de vista y mi experiencia, tienes que enfrentarse a ella. Y mucho mejor es enfrentarte con entrenamiento para cuando llegue ser más efectivo, desde luego.
Any of you adding something?
¿Que quiera añadir algo?
Sure, I think.
Sí, especialmente cuando se habla de crisis, que siempre se intenta de hablar, intercambiar con protocolo, con idioma, pero a mí siempre me han enseñado que si
then you still have a lot of work to do. So I think that people really need to reflect, all of us who are here at this type of conference, on how much effort, because as my co-panelist said, we have very limited resources in terms of time, money, and human resources that can contribute to this. So we ought to be a bit practical when we apply them to make sure that we're putting the emphasis in the right place and not getting top-heavy with the regulation and therefore stifling the possibility when it's super necessary, as in times of crisis.
Okay. Do you want to add something, Luis? No? Well, then my second question is for Jacqueline, precisely, and Luis. You know that in cybersecurity, we tend to regulate the provider of the service. Also, we do that in data protection. So at the end of the day, one of the problems we practically face in the blockchain is who's the data controller, who is the service provider I can punish if they do something bad. So, but probably is this approach something that around the third party is something that fosters, is a catalyzer for this for cybersecurity? Is something that is hindering the adoption of new cybersecurity practices? How does it fits in the blockchain DLT space? And for Luis, I'm really interested in knowing your vision about the role of digital identity. verification. Is this something which is key for implementing cybersecurity policies that are effective? So I want you to share our views, and of course, the rest of the panelists are also invited to contribute. Thanks.
So whether it's a catalyst or a hindrance, having the third-party model in blockchain is more of a philosophical question that should probably be addressed before the technology. But it is both. It's blockchain, and before that, coming from a cybersecurity perspective, more than blockchain, there is so much to be done and standardized without getting to top-heavy regulation and requirements. First, and there are plenty of initiatives that are coming out. There are many consortia, whether it's the Ethereum Enterprise Alliance, whether ESO is going at it. They're hoping to have a common definition of terms, the taxonomy for the tokens that they've just released. ESO thinks they'll have that by 2021. So there's a lot of initiatives coming out. I think as we look at how the underlying sharing of the digital economy was catalyzed and grown without those, except for the most basic standards, and everyone worked to make it interoperable, because just like people would move and broker in different economies, the same thing. I think it needs to be left alone, because too much regulation at this point filters out a lot of really amazing technology that is coming. It absolutely, but guidelines, so the SEC in the United States, they have an office, or if you're a fintech and you're thinking you want to do something in the emission of tokens or a blockchain and somewhere in the securities or currency, they'll listen to you and they'll give you some guidance, and they'll let you know. But they're in theory, at least they have not done it yet, they have not denounced and they have not punished people for doing things that are out of what they feel are their guidelines. And I will just point out one last thing, that as a general rule, and there are people that disagree, but I think it's not the technology that needs to be regulated, it's the use of. And we have plenty of regulation about all of the activities where this is being applied.
I think related to digital identity verification in terms of adoption, most companies are looking now at digital identity as a key part of their projects. It's quite critical, because at some point it's something that through blockchain technologies we can avoid different threats. We can also identify parties, give roles and permissions within a network. So we really believe that it's going to be a game changer. So there are a few projects that, for instance, we are involved. One of them is called Digitalis, which is based on the Alastria network and is using the digital identity framework within Alastria. So some companies, big companies from Spain, like Repsol, Sabadell, Ferrovial, Cepsa, Mafre, and Red Eléctrica are part of this project. And in this case, we are using digital identity for some parts of the procurement process to identify parties, and also to allow this sharing of information between all the participants of the network, which is already itself an advantage. So the providers are the ones that are gonna facilitate this information, and at some point the documentation is gonna be verified in the network, like giving a guarantee for all the participants. So we believe that this is bringing obviously a strong cybersecurity in one case, and multiple advantages in terms of efficiency for all parties. There are also some other projects locally here in Spain, like one that is called Neuron, that some banks are part of it, that are also using digital identity over blockchain technologies to identify again individuals, and in this case would be more related to what is KYC, AML processes, to share this information. Something important, and again coming back to regulation, is using these sort of protocols and frameworks. We allow also individuals to manage their own information and at some point to protect themselves as other people accessing to that information and being compliant with GDPR, which is quite important. So I believe that also linking this to biometrics and other technologies is gonna bring like a strong cybersecurity.
Contributions?
Yo creo, como ha estado hablando Luis, que desde luego tenemos, ya que estamos aquí en el país organizador, ¿no? Y en la ciudad, que desde luego Alastria creo que está haciendo un papel magnífico precisamente en lo que hemos estado hablando antes de compartición de información y sobre todo casos de uso y aplicación de casos de uso reales. O sea, que no estamos hablando ni estamos de entelequia, sino que lo estamos llevando al camino real y creo que deberíamos sacar pecho del buen proyecto que tenemos con más de 70 empresas colaborando efectivamente y de una manera eficaz.
Mari, do you want to share your vision on that with us, please?
Little, I feel decentralized identity is a very great application for blockchain. But blockchain at first built on Bitcoin. At that time, trustless is very important goal of architecture. On the other hand, AML KYC use cases is handling many sensitive information, not only money transfer, value transfer, but also many attributes. And fundamental difficulty, we have to sharing information, but we have to protect privacy. It is a fundamental problem. And of course, we are looking for application for blockchain. And we are thinking about how to utilize blockchain on great use cases, but our goal is not utilize blockchain, but we have to resolve a problem and innovate anything. I worry about, of course we have to develop use case of blockchain, but it's not the goal. We have to imagine how to do anything free from such kinds of limitation or, yeah, thank you.
Luis wants to respond.
No, yes, to completely agree with what Masanori view. Just to add something, I see that blockchain, could be applied to different fields, but always is not the best solution. So we need to see where it fits and if it fits. In this case, I believe that with digital identity, it produced a very good fit. And also regarding the management of information, so I think we were discussing before, so you cannot obviously think about blockchain as one piece, so it's just a layer that's going to interact with other technologies. So how I see myself, blockchain is a governance layer where we are going to obviously codify, develop some rules on the smart contracts in terms of the permissions, in terms of the assets that are going to be represented there, and are going to be managing pieces of information that probably are going to be sitting in databases that could be managed by the users themselves or the companies, depending obviously on the complexity. I believe is a door in terms of of progress, but at some point, blockchain is gonna bring this kind of governance layer for complex solutions.
Justin, in this case, I am going to add something also. So I'm not supposed to do that, but you know that there are some misconceptions when it comes to distributed or decentralized identities. So probably one thing we have to do is to talk about this. Not all forms of decentralized identity are so good, and probably in many cases we still need third parties. Probably this idea of having a trust anchor or having a trusted authority issuing credentials is good. This is possibly why the Spanish government has put a new regulation in Spain to say, okay, you public administrations are going to wait until we create a law which is a proper way to orient the problem. So probably in Spain in the future we will need to legislate who is this third party acting as a trust anchor. I think this is a good opportunity for Spain and also for the European Union because we are going to become a laboratory. But probably there are other situations where we don't have a third trust party, so we don't have anything except the blockchain itself working. In this case, we should shift the focus from the third-party model, the cybersecurity regulation, focus on this third party until the security of the software itself. For instance, probably in the future regulation, the main rule we plan to put into place is saying something like, if you have to operate a node, you should be common criteria certified, for instance, and use open software and use good programming practices and sort of. So this is something we're discussing, and I'm going to meet with Masanuri again next week in India because UNE is contributing heavily to several working groups of ISO. And I think we should team up to do something good, especially because Japan and Spain can interchange personal data because we are considered to be equivalent. But anyway, technology is just part of the problem. Regulation is just part of the problem. But my third question to all of you, but I want first Concepcion and then Jacqueline to speak is about the human part of the story. So. What about international certification of security professionals? What about international certification of the security aspects? We've talked about products, but I'm really interested in knowing your view on the role of certification in the field of cybersecurity around the blockchain. So what's the role of these initiatives? And especially for Jacqueline, do you feel that if we put these cyber certificates in place, it would be easier for customers, for citizens to trust this kind of systems? So what's your view on that?
Bueno, sobre lo que he preguntado, yo creo que es fundamental tener lo que hemos dicho de hablar un lenguaje común en todos los sentidos. Estamos muy concienciados sobre otros tipos de seguridades, como puede ser la seguridad vial, y todos entendemos que es un cinturón de seguridad que tiene que tener. Pues en ciberseguridad tiene que ocurrir lo mismo. Tiene que haber un lenguaje común y para eso están las certificaciones que nos diga, por lo menos de una manera global, aunque se tenga que independizar por continentes, por países, pero que haya un marco regulador común a nivel global y que todos sepamos que cumple unos mínimos y en esos mínimos es en los que los reguladores se tienen que poner de acuerdo y hacer que ahora aquí en Europa con el último el reglamento de seguridad, de ciberseguridad europeo precisamente trata de eso, de unificar y poner un lenguaje común y de certificaciones en los productos. E igualmente a las personas. Creo que hay mucha diversidad, en ciberseguridad hay muchísimas disciplinas y debe de existir también un marco regulador de evaluar de alguna manera esas disciplinas, aunque existan gran variedad, pero que te certifiquen, porque realmente creo que hay pocos profesionales especializados o por lo menos contrastados. Y sobre todo hay muchos ámbitos en la ciberseguridad y en las disciplinas, desde el management, la gestión, hasta el último técnico, y todo eso tiene que ir regulado. Si no, no conseguiremos dar la respuesta adecuada a los planteamientos de ciberseguridad, y es necesaria unificar.
So, as always, in terms of certification, I think there's definitely a place for it. We could look maybe at the medical profession and at a very high level. You want to know that if you're walking into surgery, the person is a doctor. That said, in cybersecurity, most of the companies I know do not anymore pay a lot of attention to the different certifications. They do their own tests. I would say the CSSIP is a good example because you have to be recommended. So just as if you have guilds or you have organizations where you self-monitor, as you do in law, as you do in medicine, when you have professionals, I think that is more important than the set of letters that go after people in their LinkedIn profile. And I think, given Concepcion's comment, which is very true, we have such a scarcity of resources. If we have a lot of people that are quite talented chasing certificates rather than working on practical cases and learning from the experience, they're at a complete disadvantage to the massive mafias that are not burdened by this level of regulation and certification. They go, they do their job, they're organized, but they're criminals. So there's really no reason to put an overemphasis. I think self-monitoring within all of the different verticals of this is probably the best, at least in the short, medium term.
Any other views on that?
Yes, so that's something quick. Yeah, I agree on the certifications. That is something that I think at some point is very interesting, and in some kind of work it's kind of mandatory, but it's very difficult, as Jacqueline was saying, to catch up with the criminals and all that people that are not, drive by certification. They are drive by, trying to find vulnerabilities on the systems and so on. That's why, as you guys were mentioning at the beginning, I really believe on practical training, like cyber exercises, and working all together, sharing best practices in terms of knowing these vulnerabilities as soon as they are detected, which is obviously very, very difficult. But linking other technologies, probably they are able to predict this kind of vulnerabilities with teams specialized, and maybe creating a repository, not only based on blockchain, it could be based on anything, where we have these incidents posted. I think that would be very, very useful.
I think we are really tight on time, so.
Slido, that would be great. Ignacio, if you can direct this to one of the panelists. The question is, do you consider quantum computing a threat to blockchain applications in terms of cybersecurity and the resilience? If so, is there any ideas how to counteract?
Looking at the panic faces of my panelists, I think I'm going to give the floor to Masanori, at least. So I don't know if Jacqueline is eager also to say something, if it's quick. But first, Masanori, please.
It's not only blockchain, but also all cryptographic applications have to care about it. It's just a possibility, not a real threat at that time. But if we operate blockchain not only 1 or 2 years, but also 10 or 20 years, we have to consider about migration process, that how to change cryptographic algorithm from dangerous algorithm to protected algorithm. Blockchain has huge data, historical data. But my understanding is that the current most of blockchain architecture don't care about such kinds of cryptographic agility. It will important point to future design of blockchain. Thank you.
Wait, Jacqueline, you have 2 minutes if you want to say something.
Yeah, I completely agree. I mean, I think while it's something certainly that everybody is talking about, at this juncture, it's really an attack on the cryptography and on the protection, which is something we're already struggling with at several levels. So it's not the incidence of, in the future, although people have announced quantum computers and they are there, it's not a standard, and the actual use cases are very small, and we haven't seen them used to do that. I think it'll just be a question of substituting what comes next, maybe something underlying architecture, block stack, or some of these that comes along when this is a mature industry. I don't think it's a threat in itself.
Just 1 minute more.
Solamente, precisamente quizás la respuesta a esa pregunta la tendremos dentro de unos días cuando termine. Ahora se está celebrando, o se está preparando la supercomputación, el evento de supercomputación mundial que se hace una vez al año, perdón. Se construye la red más rápida del mundo, y precisamente sobre la computación cuántica van a dar bastante respuesta. Así que quizás la tendremos en pocos días.
Okay, thanks to my panelists, thanks for the audience. I think it's been very important. We are the only thing preventing you to having lunch, so probably I'm closing the panel right now. Thanks to you all.
Well, thank you so much, Ignacio, and all your panels. I think, again, this conversation about cybersecurity is a conversation that should take place between the industries, but also within the regulators. What I really loved hearing is, should we regulate technology as much as we should regulate the person? So I think it's been a very informative panel, guys. I would like to remind you guys that there's lunch at 2 o'clock. We all come back to the program that you have chosen. At 1 o'clock, obviously, there's an amazing book signing for people who also like to swim in the data lake with me. I'll be there. And other than that, I think Claire hopes to see you here at 2 o'clock. I'll be in Auditorium 1. And thank you so much, and bon appetit.